which had recommended that the SABC should take remedial action against him. The same court also heard from Communications Minister, who, like the SABC, wants Motsoeneng to continue to serve as SABC COO. Joining us now is the Communication Minister's legal representative, Dan Mantsha. Sir, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on Morning Live. And let's get into that conversation. Why was the Communication Minister involved in this case?
Well, the Minister of Communication, after receiving the application from the Democratic Alliance late last year, after she appointed Mr. Motsoeneng as a COO, the application raised two fundamental matters. The first matter was the findings of the public protector, whether those are binding in law or not. And secondly, the case raised the question of the powers of a shareholder in a state-owned entity. As you know, that the Minister of Communication represents the state as a shareholder as far as the SABC affairs are concerned. The Minister, as a shareholder representative, appointed Mr. Motsoeneng as a COO after a recommendation by the SABC board. The fundamental question, which doesn't only affect the Department of Communication, which affects all the departments, is the powers of a minister to appoint either a chief executive officer or a chief operation officer in a state-owned entity. Can that power be exercised in consultation with the board? Does that power requires the minister to strictly follow the memorandum of incorporation of that particular entity or not? So, given the two important questions which the minister felt they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed properly, she then decided to oppose the DA application so that there can be clarity whether the findings of the public protector are binding or not. Because prior to the appointment of Mr. Motsoeneng, there was a public protector's report which had certain recommendations and certain findings and certain remedial actions recommended. The minister, after considering that report and the subsequent report which the SABC commissioned to investigate the findings of the public protector and to see how the public protector report could be implemented. The report by the SABC, which was commissioned by the SABC board, came with different conclusions. And after the minister exercised her mind into the two reports, she then came to the conclusion that indeed there was no basis to say that Mr. Motsoeneng lied about his matric qualification. The record of the public protector indicated that he stated that he never lied about it. He told the people who employed him, and the people who employed him knew that he did not have matric. So there was no lie about it. And other matters, the paging of staff and so on, those matters were...
we've seen in the news.
Yes, those matters were properly dealt with. The question of the lapse of governance in the SABC, the matter was properly dealt with in the report, and there were mechanisms which were put by the board to actually address that issue. So, Minister, after exercising her mind on the matter, she then decided to appoint Mr. Motsoeneng. So, after that appointment, then the urgent application by the Democratic Party was launched. And the minister felt that there must be a clarity on whether a minister or anybody for that matter is bound to implement the public protector recommendation. The decision of the court was very simple, that the findings of the public protector are not binding. If the legislature in this regard, the Parliament, if they intended that the Public Protector finding a binding, the Public Protectors Act would have spelled that out. The Constitution would have spelled that out. Yeah. So this question is important for for main reason, because people tend to place expectation on institutions like Public Protector, because if you overstate the powers of the Public Protector, you then create unnecessary expectations.
So can I interject very quickly and just ask you, is the Minister concerned then with all the negative, as you said, she's applied her mind, is she concerned with the constant negative media reports, constant attacks on her appointment then?
The appointment of the COO?
Yes.
Well, look.
Because she has applied her mind.
Look, to start with, the Minister, when she took a decision, she knew from the word go that other people would oppose it. But as a minister, you don't act on the basis of the newspaper articles.
Yes.
You act on the basis of the facts. And the facts before her was that Mr. Motsoeneng, as an acting COO, has done a very good job for the SABC. There was a motivation from the board which was given to the minister of things which are tangible, which Mr. Motsoeneng has done for the SABC. So it was one of those factors that the minister has seriously considered to say, I need somebody who would continue to stabilize the SABC and take the SABC to the greater heights. And she concluded that Mr. Motsoeneng was that person.
What would you say are the minister's core interests for the SABC?
Well, firstly, the minister, when she was appointed, she was given a mandate. The mandate is to disseminate information to the citizens. The mandate is to empower the citizen through the information. The SABC is a key player in informing South Africans and all the people in this country about the work that South Africans are doing, whether they're doing it in government or outside government. So the interest of the minister is to make sure that the mandate of this administration, that people must be empowered through information.
So what impact does a case against the SABC COO then have on the minister's plans?
Well, the case, the implications are very simple. When looking at the record of the current executives of the SABC, led by Mr. Motsoeneng, I can just refer you last week to the discussions in Parliament, where the Auditor General gave a report to say to Parliament that the SABC is improving governance. The SABC is improving governance, including those in regard to public funding. So the interest of the minister is to see the SABC stabilized, and the first step to stabilize the SABC from the minister point of view was to appoint an executive team which would make sure that the SABC finance are stabilized, the SABC carries its mandate to inform, to educate and entertain the public, and to empower the citizen, including those in this country, with information.
The Minister, a final question to you, sir. The Minister has lodged an appeal. Where to from now?
Well, in terms of the processes to follow from now, the court has to provide a record. As you know, the appeal is against a decision by the court to grant an order that simply say Mr. Motsoeneng must be disciplined, and during that period of a disciplinary hearing, he must be suspended. The minister has appealed, as you know, on the basis that you can only give that order as a court if the applicant will suffer irreparable harm. In this regard, the applicant is a Democratic Alliance. the order of the court was initially granted on the 24th of October last year. Then the question you ask is, what irreparable harm will the Democratic Alliance, or anyone else for that matter, will suffer if Mr. Motsoeneng continue to be a CEO as duly appointed by the minister until such time that the appeal is finalized? And this is the appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeals, which the judge has granted last week. So the minister feels that there is no basis for anyone to argue that the continuation of Mr. Motsoeneng as the COO of the SABC cause irreparable harm to anyone else. For this reason, the minister has decided to challenge the findings of the court, because there is no irreparable harm to anyone else. In fact, the opposite is the case. The continuation of Mr. Motsoeneng, as indicated, as even the parliamentary processes, members of parliament last week uploaded the executive management of the SABC of the good work that they're doing. For that matter, even the opposition party, they've joined to congratulate the SABC and to encourage the SABC to continue to do the good work.
So we've run out of time, but thank you very much for joining us here and sharing some insights on that. We're talking to, of course, the Communications Minister's legal advisor, Dan Mantsha, sharing some insight on the decision by the court, a successfully lodged appeal against the decision to have SABC CEO Hlaudi Motsoeneng suspended. Okay, that's where we leave it. Let's go.